Good morning, Sanbonani, and welcome to the UN Bring Your Fire Live Dialogues. The purpose of this gathering is call to action through the Bring Your Fire Zone as a part of the MTN Bushfire Festival's mandate. The partnership with the United Nations is the United Nations response to the call to action through festival participating and to link the Sustainable Development Goals with work being done in Eswatini. UN is bringing their fire through the Bring Your Fire Zone partnership.
Indeed, Tabelo. And this is amazing Tabelo Dlamini, ladies and gentlemen. And I am Siyabonga Dlamini, also known as the Silent Writer. Once again, welcome to the first session of the UN Bring Your Fire Dialogue. This is an initiative brought to you by MTN, Bushfire, and the United Nations in Eswatini. This topic, as Tabelo has said, will unpack thoughtful and impactful discussions around the theme education and climate action. We will, however, be narrowing down to empowering the inspiration of environmental stewards. Now, this topic, Tabelo addresses SDG 4, which amplifies quality education, as well as SDG 13, which talks about climate action.
And of course, as we know, Sia, this is of course MTN Bushfire and the UN's outreach program, which is aimed at encouraging young people to lend their efforts towards fostering positive change and sustainable legacies in their communities.
Well said indeed. And speaking of communities, the MTN Bushfire and the UN will be hosting a total of 5 live dialogues. This session will be followed by 4 more held on the 1st and the 22nd of May. University of Eswatini Kuseni's campus. We are inviting youth in Eswatini with burning passion for sustainable change to join us next live dialogue. Remember to follow us on all social media platforms, MTN Bushfire and UN in Eswatini. All social media platforms, you will actually get to learn also about the future. Held September 2024. The UN, where countries like Eswatini, Tabelo will indeed be bringing.
And of course, Sia, speaking of bringing your fire, you know, bringing your fire can be so many things. It means bringing your energy and bringing your vibe. And I think people that will be bringing their fire today are, of course, our list of panelists today speaking here. And I think with their professions, they serve a vital role towards the topic that the discussion that is going to be had today. It is only fair that we hand it over to the moderator for today, Mr. Victor Nkambule, as he takes it away and we listen.
A very good morning to all. I am, as introduced, Victor Nkambule, working for UNICEF as education specialist. I am the session moderator today. I have 4 panelists with me here. I'd like them to introduce themselves. First, I will allow Dudu Kenetpa to introduce herself.
Thank you very much, Nkambule, and a very good morning to listeners at home and at the amphitheater. My name is introduced. I'm Dudu Zlentleng-Thomasina, the director at Eswatini Meteorological Service, where we also coordinate climate action-related work in the country.
Thank you very much, Dudu. Moving on, let me also allow Zandisile.
Good morning to everyone in the audience as well as back at home. As mentioned, I'm Zandisile Hau. I'm a member of the Eswatini Climate Change Youth Parliament. I'm also a member of Hlumisa Eswatini, which is a youth climate network where we work on capacitating young people across the country, solely focused on the climate change space.
Thank you, Zandisile. Moving on, we will have Spesihle also introducing herself.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sipesihle Mkonda. I work for Junior Achievement Eswatini, an organization that works with government, business people, and other organizations to actually deliver an experiential learning for financial literacy, work readiness, and entrepreneurship. And we are happy to be part of the Climate Action Group.
Thank you, Spe. Moving on, let me allow Dan to also introduce himself.
Thanks, Victor. Good morning, everybody. My name is Dana Armstrong, and I'm a climate change and environmental writer, researcher, consultant, but I also work in the creative arts as a facilitator and educator.
Thank you, Dan. And as already mentioned by the program directors, our discussion today is on climate change and education. I'd like to kick off the discussion with a policy view on the topic, and I would like to ask just our first panelist here to give us her perspective on the role of policy in integrating climate change, especially in education.
Thank you very much. I would say that policy is one of the instruments that are available to create an enabling environment for anything that needs to be done. And one primary role of government is to provide an enabling environment, and that is what we do. Now talking about governments, there are different levels of government as well. There is the United Nations, where it's government at global level, different governments coming together. And at that level, we already have some policy guidance that talks towards education and other things in the climate change space. We have what we call the Action for Climate Empowerment Program, which we quite often refer to as ACE. And when we talk about ACE, there are multiple things that are there, and some of the things that are there talk to ensuring that there is the policy framework to enable education and awareness. It also talks to creating, making sure that there is education and awareness at all levels. So as a government of Eswatini as well, we are taking that into consideration, wherein we have our policy, and we are currently developing a bill that is creating that enabling space as well. And it is indeed critical, because once you have the policy, it is what then guides all the players to do that. You have the policy, the national policy, which then needs to cascade to different entities with their own policy. Once we have that policy as government, it's easy then for educators, whether in the public space or in the private space, to take that policy up and into their own policies and ensure that they mobilize the resources that are necessary to ensure that there is that training. Now, when you talk about training, education, there are different levels. There's the preschool, there's the primary school, there's tertiary, and there's even the level where there are already people at work and you want to capacitate them with emerging issues to be able to work, and we need to venture into all those spaces. We have already started working, ensuring that there is primary school, but with the right policies, it will be easy even for the private educators to take it into their own work and ensure that it is there for training institutions to make sure that they provide the right information, to ensure that as there is development, there are updates as well. Having said that, education doesn't end there. There is the non-formal stream, which is equally important. As a Maswati, sisuka lapho khona kunetindzaba tasesangweni nasegomeni, and we need not lose that. The education needs to start from there. We need to ensure that we teach our children from that age. We need to ensure that iqhubeke lemvo, so that isiqale ekuncaneni sikhule nayo, and that way we will have the right education and we will have the appetite to learn more, and that is what is going to inform change and climate action.
Thank you very much, Dudu. That's quite informative. We are not only talking about the role of education as it applies to formal education, but also we are mentioning very importantly our traditional structures, lisango nelguma, to say let discussion ye climate change ayiqale lapho, so that labantwana bakhule nayo le information right from that level. That was quite informative. Thank you very much. And moving along, let's now hear from the Youth Parliament member here, Zandisile. Zandisile, in your view, what is the role of the young people in the climate change space, especially in view of how it then can be integrated also in education?
Thank you for the question. The role of young people is very big, because we are the catalyzers for climate action that can be done. So when we align this with education, it makes us have informed decisions and actions that we can influence at the national stage. So just to mention the things even our young people are already doing and mobilizing is the community initiatives. that youth organizations are doing, something as simple as the cleanup campaigns. As we see on Facebook, there's the Clean Up Your Kasi Challenge, which is started at the Lutse. This is just young people using their knowledge that they have on waste management and mobilizing even other young people in their communities to help keep the environment clean and very safe in all of that. There's also the part of innovation that young people contribute through research in institutions at higher levels such as university, even at lower levels from high schools all the way down to primary. When the support from organizations such as UNDP, where they were coming up with the innovation challenge, we saw young Swazis coming up with beautiful innovations such as using plastic waste to make tiles and roofings. They also even managed to address the problem of electronic waste, which is something we suffer from in the country. There's also the peer-to-peer learning that we're doing. As I mentioned, I'm from Hlumisa, and we specialize with capacity building of other young people within the climate change space. So this can be through agriculture, WASH, which is the water and sanitation, everything that's basically affected by climate change. We're also seeing a growing level of international engagement, where we're seeing our young people being in these important processes, such as COP and UNEA, which inform the policies which we also develop in our countries. So there's a lot of roles that young people play, and I'd also like to commend the government on its efforts of, for example, putting the sustainable goals into the curriculum. Young people are learning it, so by the time we go out and do these community initiatives, it's not a foreign concept to the people in the community as well as the young people. I think maybe what else the government could try and do is further capacitating our teachers in schools so that the innovation environment for the young people can be strengthened, so that even unpacking the sustainable goals and the climate change effects, if a teacher completely understands it and even has had exposure of what other African countries are doing, it can be more understood by the students. I think another thing that can be also implemented is the hands-on learning, more field trips for young people, combining with the NGOs within our country, having young people job shadowing within these spaces of organizations that are already doing the climate change solutions. And I think also we need more community partnerships because schools, they have so much influence within our communities. I'd like to say the example of Mojane Primary School. The amazing things that they're doing there in the school, it's even influencing the community around, that we should do pick up and clean up campaigns, that we should use, for example, simple nature for therapy sessions whenever young people are going through some mental health problems, as well as the sustainable agriculture. The things that the children learn at school, they're able to implement back in home and encourage the sustainable practices within homes.
Thank you very much, Zandisile. Very informative as well on the youth engagement on climate change issues, the many initiatives that our young people out there are already doing. And of course, very importantly, we are mentioning that even in school, these issues should be introduced right in curriculum. Also from the early stages of education, from preschool, we should have our young children being engaged on the climate change issues so that they are able to protect our environment, and we have a very balanced education when we can actually introduce climate issues at that level. I'd like to move along and talk to Spare, who comes from industry. Now, Spare, in your view, how can we ensure that climate change education, this discussion that we're having here, also finds its way into the industry space, but most importantly, how can we ensure that it is inclusive and takes care of every learner in that space, every young people in that space, and everyone who is involved in industry?
Thank you, Victor. As implementers on the ground, Junior Achievement is engaged in schools where we teach your work readiness, employability, and entrepreneurship. We advocate for skills training, that every child must hone a skill that they can earn a living from. So when you see that our programs, they go to as low as the primary school, it would actually be nice to have the kindergarten, preschool children also included. We are in a number of schools across the country, both in rural and urban areas. And we also are in schools where they are disabled students. So our programs this year, maybe Victor, just to bring it to everybody's attention, we always have a competition where schools come together and compete through creating a product that they can sell and an enterprise. So what we have done this year, we have a theme that speaks to the green economy. So all the students in the different schools that are taking part in our competition, we are expecting them to come up with an innovation that speaks to climate change, and actually speaks to sustainability. So the skills that they have, these young people, they can be able to express how best we can have sustainability around the environmental issues. So also our high-end youth, because we have from 5 years to 35, Victor, young people that we work with, we have seen businesses that have adopted eco-friendly processes. They are using your solar power to water their fields. They are doing your e-agriculture. We are seeing a lot of technology around businesses that are saying we must preserve nature and we must be environmentally aware. In Siswati, Victor, we say, "Funzisa umntwana indlela letathi nasekakhulile angasuki kuyo." It's actually the Bible that says that. So if we teach these young people from an early stage of preschool, we are actually teaching them to align to environmentally friendly businesses. It shouldn't be a struggle for them when they think, what business can I start? Environment should come first. They should actually be aligned to your paperless businesses. They should be, because we don't expect any young person to start a business and be buying loads and loads of paper at this stage. So if we teach them at a younger stage, we're actually allowing them to grow in these environmental aware things and actually embrace them even into their businesses. We are hoping by September, when we have our competition, you can actually see the variety of innovations around what these young people are thinking could save our environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sper, for that elaborate and very informative sharing on how we are working with the young people in the industry space to ensure that the businesses that JA is supporting are environmentally friendly, and we are already using green energy as an example for some of these initiatives. I mentioned earlier on that the discussion we're having here today on climate change is one that really concerns everyone across all walks of life. We've heard from a policymaker, we've heard from someone who is representing the youth, we've heard from industry. Dane here comes from a sector that is so special. He's an artist, and I want to hear from him. In your view, then, what would be some of the innovative ways that we can engage, or that we can use to engage on the discussion around climate change? And as an artist, what would be your suggestions in terms of meaningful engagement of all that are concerned around the space of climate change?
Thanks a lot, Victor. So I think something that we've realized over the last 10 years of going around the country, talking to schools, talking with schools, to young people, to communities, to the elderly, is that there's a growing awareness of the issues at hand. Where we might be kind of desiring to let people know that something is bad or how bad it is, people are actually aware of this, and what they're hungry for is to know what to do about it and how to go about doing that and how to be better capacitated individually or collectively to address these things. And when we talk about the arts, we're not necessarily talking about physically doing art, although that is definitely a method of engagement with anybody, regardless of age. But you're also talking about creative capacity and creative thinking, because the crux of climate change is a systemic issue. And if we use the same thinking to get us out of this mess as got into it, we're not going to get anywhere. So when we're talking about education, awareness, we are trying to do it creatively, but you're trying to instill creative capacity within people to address the issues. From 2022 to 2023, when we were working with the National Curriculum Council on integrating climate change education into the national curriculum, we were focusing on primary school level. If I can quickly say, on a tertiary and a secondary level, it's understandable that people are very hungry to know what direction they can take their lives in for their own personal careers and for the impact that they'd like to have in their country, in their community, on the planet. But once you get down to a primary level, you're not trying to get people, young kids, thinking about what jobs they want. You're trying to instill, of course, you're trying to educate and teach science and teach things like that, but you're trying to instill values and principles. And that education is not just happening in a school environment, that also should be happening at home and in the community environment. So there needs to be an alignment between educators in the system, whether it's curriculum designers and teachers and principals, but also at home with parents and community leaders and mentors and things like that. And we can talk about specifics and green jobs and access to things, but a lot of it boils down to not focusing only on just specific actions. It's the fertile ground needed to help people identify those actions. And there are these 4 dimensions of climate change education. One is cognitive, one socio-emotional, action-oriented, and justice-focused. So the idea is, yes, learn the science, learn the issues, learn the things that you can do, but learn also how to feel, teach young people how to engage, how to feel about issues, both positive and negative, how to be action-oriented, so how to take steps to take the initiative, either as themselves or collectively, and also to have a justice focus, to know that impacts are not going to be felt equally amongst people, and that not everybody is starting from the same place with what they're doing. And there's also this desired skill set that we're trying to teach when we start implementing climate change education or sustainable education into curriculums, into households, etc. We're trying to teach young people how to collect information, how to evaluate that information, how to critically think, how to solve problems, how to engage, how to cooperate. And a really big one is future thinking. I think all of us are used to this term forecasting. It's something that we think of projecting forward, and it's not just to do with the weather. It's to do with everything in your life. But equally important is backcasting. So teaching young people how to look backwards and see the changes that they made in their own lives or that society made that resulted in where we or they are today, and how we can start implementing those same tools from now moving forward. And on top of that, it's also how to respond and adapt to unforeseen events, how to participate in planning, how to localize and contextualize issues and possible solutions to what's relevant in your space, your community, your country. And also this idea of honoring, which is about intergenerational, indigenous, or traditional knowledge, so that it's not always a new thing. A lot of it is just rebuilding things we already know. And lastly, it's about interconnecting, so how to get young people to think collectively together. And just to note that this isn't about climate change, this can be about anything. But these are the kinds of skill sets that you're trying to instill onto young people, whether it's in a creative workshop or through curriculum design, or whether teachers trying to do a lesson plan for a classroom. How do we bring these values into stories, to classes, to lessons, to curricula, and make them the building blocks of what we do moving forward?
Thank you very much, Dane. Again, very informative sharing there from Dane, who comes from, who represent artists here. He shared how they're actually engaging with the young people out there. What I like with all the sharing that we've received from the panelists is that they are looking at education holistically, right from early age or foundation years. They are seeing the importance of engaging the young people at that tender age. As they grow with that mindset that's really geared towards protecting our environment and being aware of the climate issues. He's also mentioned that they're not only engaging on the climate discussions or ensuring that it is part of the curriculum an end there, but also they are taking an interest on the evaluation aspect to see if indeed the engagement that curriculum is actually supposed to do with our learners at school is making the desired impact and is causing the desired shift in terms of climate action. So at this point in time, I'd like to open the discussion and the engagement with our audience, and thank you very much once again from our panelists here. Maybe as the audience prepares to engage, if you have any question, if you've got any comment that you'd want to make, this is the time. So I'd like to open this up to the engagement. But as maybe we receive your engagement or your questions, comments, I'd like to maybe also give an opportunity once more to our panelists here in case you want to add something just in 30 minutes. But of course, I'm looking at the audience and I'm ready to take your input as we go along.
Thank you very much. I think a lot has already been said, but the critical thing that I am taking from that whole discussion is that our education starts at home. Before the child even gets to preschool, they should already be taught by parents and the community they live in. And that education, there are multiple ways to do it. It's not just by what you say, it's also by what you do, instilling those values. By the time they get to preschool, they get a different level of understanding. One may ask, why should I be learning about climate change from home all the way through to tertiary, even when I am at work, be still learning about it? There is so much, it touches on everything. So there is a lot to learn, but it starts by instilling a culture and understanding that yes, there is climate change, and this is what has caused it, this is what we are supposed to do. And for young people as well, it's thinking about the outside the box, being able to put everything together, whether it's climate change related or otherwise, put it together to come up with innovative solutions. We are currently not doing enough as a globe. We need to do more, but with the innovation, which will be informed by what we know. The past is critical in informing the future, but we need to know what the problem is in order to plan appropriately to action on it.
Thank you very much, Tutu, for that addition. Indeed, highlighting the fact that everyone has a role to play in climate action and ensuring that the discussion starts right at home, at family level. By the time they get to foundation years, education, preschool, they are already empowered on climate action issues from family level. I'm opening up to the audience. Do we have any quick questions, comments? You've heard the discussions from our panelists here. Do you have any question or comment on any of the discussions or other engagements that we've had here? I am seeing a hand. Please help me with the mic. Yes, over to you, my brother.
Thank you so much. I understand that in order for us to cultivate or to make sure that people are aware about climate change, we have to educate them both formally and informally. My main worry is about the informal education. We've got people, we've got traditionalists, we've got traditional healers, we've got the bus conductors. We've got people who can't even communicate in English. I'm asking about the efforts that have been done, maybe by the government or any NGO. What has been done, maybe to break down the climate change related words or keywords into society so that, I'll make an example of HIV and AIDS. Unabo condom, sisimajaza mkwenyana, nale HIV and AIDS sibita sengulazi. But when it comes to climate change, you find that when you define climate change, you find that you say kushinja kwesimo selitulu. Yet, when you try to make it in a direct translation, we know ukuthi litulu is rainfall. kukhona into kungasenda ukuthi lamagama siwakhona start from English siwafake eSwatini ukuze kuba effective when it comes to the informal education. That's my question. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Mongane Stole from Moyen High School. I'm an English, I'm a geography teacher.
Thank you very much, Bongani. I am seeing two more hands. Before we respond, let's have the mic. Yes, over to you, my brother, and then we come to the front here. We have another hand.
Thank
Your
you, sir.
name and then your question, please.
Thank you, sir. Pinda Bongam, coming from the Family Life Association of Swaziland. My take or my question, firstly, it will be a comment. There is high need in Eswatini that we teach a child to build a nation. We need to educate from our lowest grounds on climate change. So that when we're going up, we will know that we'll have a new generation that will have better understanding when it comes to climate change. Apart from that, my question will be based on the issue of social inclusion, basically with people living with disabilities. How far has the government gone trying to incorporate them with climate change? And what are they doing as people living with disability as a means to fight against climate change? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. Let's have the mic come up front here. We have another question from the lady seated up front here. Introduce yourself, Margaret, and proceed with the question.
Thank you so much. My name is Dr. Rejoice Masek from the Ministry of ICT. The Ministry of ICT, there is a new department known as the Department of Research, Science, Technology and Innovation. So I'm the director there. So thank you so much. Let me start by appreciating our speakers. Wow. Thank you for the information. We are learning a lot. I have a question for the director. I would like to find out, as you know, that indeed the world now, they say it's a VUCA world. Volatile, there's a lot of uncertain figures. So really, even climate change is making it worse. So, and according to UN, it's clear that science is at the center stage of all the SDGs. So that is why, as we are moving forward, we have to make sure that we strengthen our national systems of innovation. We have to make sure that we strengthen our research. So we have to ensure that we strengthen our education. So I want to find out if maybe, let's say, UN or your department is considering maybe funding research, especially when it comes to climate change, because we cannot have a situation where most of our universities, mostly the teaching and learning, maybe community service, but I can tell you, for now, we don't have, unlike other countries, an institution or a parastatal that is responsible for funding of research. But fortunately, government, there is an act now for establishing the National Research Council, which would fund research. But problem is money. So I was wondering, maybe through your office, can we maybe reach out to our international partners so that we can ensure that this institution, which will also assist in funding research related to climate change, if it can be fully operational. So we'll appreciate that. And having said that, I also have a question for my youth. I normally call this economy that we are in now, which is associated with the fourth industrial revolution, the youth economy. We cannot deny that. So I wanted to find out from you, thank you for your intervention, but I want to find out if you are considering the emerging technologies in solving climate change related challenges, because now, as you are aware, artificial intelligence, the center stage, robotics, and all the other emerging technologies. Are you considering maybe in your organization, are you considering the youth to ensure that as we are looking up to them for solutions, they are also considering the emerging technologies? Madam Konda, I wanted to find out, are you willing, maybe the question applies to both of us to speak, because we can do this Molanyana activities, raise awareness, but we need to change the curriculum. We need to revise programs at universities. We need to ensure that the programs that are being offered, they speak to the fourth industrial revolution, speak to the fifth industrial revolution. Otherwise, for us to make impact at gain, we need to make sure that we revise our programs. Hence, we'll appreciate if maybe this government we can be assisted to revise not only the curriculum, maybe lower level, but also ensure that we revise the curriculum or the programs at university level, so that our students, they are marketable all over, not only locally, because their degrees or the programs are relevant to the fourth. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Director. Maybe let me quickly allow our panelists here to respond to the questions. We've got the first question that talks to how we are simplifying the discussion around climate change, climate action. I think this one can be taken also by Dudu, or even Dan can talk to this one, because Dan also worked with the Curriculum Center at some point from the artist perspective. Maybe either of you can respond to that one. We have another one from Flas on the inclusion. How are we working with people with disabilities? Spare, you talked on your engagement of young people with disabilities. Maybe you can elaborate on this one. We had about 3 questions from ICT. The first one is on the research. How can MET assist on this one? I'd like to take this one. And then on the emerging technologies, please take that one, Zandi. And then on curriculum, of course, I'll allow then and also to engage on that one. Let me start with you, Dudu. Over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. As we work from a government level, we're also working under the principles under the UN, of which one key one we're working under is leaving no one behind. So as we leave no one behind, I think the issue of people where speaking in English language becomes a challenge is an issue. And ngaphandle kwaloko yatina sikhuluma tinfo ngelimi letfu kukhona lekukwentako futsi ngetul kwaloko kwenta nje kube nalokuthi lemfo ngeyetfu si ingithi ownership, so kumcoka vele. Lesasike sakwenta sike sabambisana sisebenta nalaba lababuke indzaba yetehlakalo, where we found ukuthi a lot of the terminologies ayafanana. Sakhanza ukuthi kukhona lebese baqalile bakwenta basebenta nalaba labasebenta Siswati. Akhona ke emagama la kahlaliwe abuka phansi kwabhalwa phansi ukuthi angathini ngale Siswati. Mane our language is khanza ukuthi quite often iba stagnant. So kunaloko ukuthi, do we come up with technology, with terminologies lesekatasi lo ukuthi sivane lokuthi sithini noma senda indlela, because what is very very important is communicating. Funa lemfo nangisho lo munye umuntu eve ukuthi ngithini. Sometimes akusiko ukuthi lenhlavu ngenhlavu yeligama ichaza sonke lesimo, but it's how it is understood. Because indzaba yesimo selitulu nje ngibekise ngayo, we've always said simo selitulu, but noma libalele sikhuluma ngesimo selitulu, but ngiyethemba ukuthi nonke nangithi simo selitulu niyeva lo ukuthi ngithini. So it's the communication, and yes, kuliqiniso lo ukuthi there is a lot that we can do to improve on the language kuze ukuthi singabi confused and as we speak. So give me, it's what we have done, but it's also a challenge that there is more that can be done to ensure that we communicate. And then on the same, kunalenza by people living with disabilities. While it's a question that has been posed on somebody else to ask, njengalo kungishilo ukuthi it's leaving no one behind. Kubesa sekuhlupha lo ukuthi ezisebenza leaving no one behind, sometimes the capacity is limited. Discussa khuluma nje sathi, you know, even in terms of having yonke lo msebenzi lesiwendako ube accessible to bonke, how do we get to Braille? But this is more of a systematic issue. Ngiyaye ngithi Nkambule, you know, my kids are at school today, they are still not learning sign language. Ngiyafuna kuba inclusive mina, but can I communicate to a person who cannot hear me? So there is a systematic issue that we need to correct so that it's fully inclusive. Sikhona lokho ukuthi nazandisile angamxoxela lomnye longangaye ngelanguage lakatayiva kuleyo disability lakabhekene nayo, and it is important that we include all, we leave no one behind. And then endzabeni yaka technology and research, under the whole work of climate change, there is what we call, there is a pillar we call research and systematic observation that is there, let's say, sebendako. And there is also another pillar, let's say, sebenda na ICT under the innovation. There is a technology aspect of the work that we do. Systems of innovation are there as well. I think rather than trying to unpack everything in the limited time that we have, I will request that we have more time to talk about it best with the director, and maybe as another opportunity avails itself, we can make the information available. How do we partner going forward? But there are avenues, but working with all sectors, whether it's the youth, agriculture, education, and so on. It's them understanding what opportunities are there, and this invite lead in going forward, because we are unable to take the lead for all the sectors, but all sectors need to come into the play.
Thank you very much. Moving along, let's have you use of technology, how young people taking advantage of emerging opportunities.
Thank you for the questions. Before I get into the technology one, can I also just tap into Lenzaba Eswatini? I think from the creative youth side, perhaps we can also help solve this issue, because one of my majors, for example, at university was African languages, and we did cover the aspect of translation. So I think if young people within the humanities space, if you can come together and translate, for example, the national determined contributions, the adaptation plans, so that everyone is on board on what we're trying to do, rather it being a concept, so that we can always be all involved with it. I think even using competitions where even our young people can participate, because even with us, the language is getting lost. So I think if we could have these frequent competitions of creating these Siswati words in creative ways, I think it would encourage us to have that in the system always. And then also social inclusion with the disabilities. I would also like to commend the work of UNDP and UNICEF, because there was another workshop that I attended. The fact that the panelists were speaking, there was a person who was doing sign language, transferring the information to the people who couldn't hear. Even for those who can't see, there was a person who can always just be able to adequately translate the information. So as Director had mentioned, it's more of a systematic problem, but I think NGOs can also come up and step in and help also solve this issue, making sure that indeed no one is left behind. And then emerging technologies, you had mentioned AI and so many other things such as climate smart agriculture. By Hlumisa, we have tried. So, for example, we've had a building youth resilience amongst young people using agroecology as an adaptation method to climate change. So, but what we often lack is the capacity to be able to reach all of these young people. So we need more support from that, from government and even private sector. What we also lack is the infrastructure. For example, Stoileti AI, but how many young people in the rural areas really have the access to your computers, to your laptops and everything? So Shangati Gunga developer the infrastructure within our country, as well as the support system and the collaboration, so that Gunga be like we're working in silos. We'll come with these innovations, but if government isn't looking in that direction, it'll almost be like it gets lost within the system. So I think if we could collaborate on all those things, that would help with it.
Thank you very much, Sandy. Spe, so khulumile director inclusivity around the discussion on climate change. You want to add anything?
Yes, Victor. Thank you so much, Director. You have articulated it very well in terms of the inclusion in our curriculum also. Yogotela ICT is bringing up the issue of the curriculum that we're offering to our students, if it is embracing the climate change issues. I know that we always in such forums discuss that this needs to be done, this needs to be done, but we are not being intentional as a country, as different industry players in our different spaces to actually say, how far has our geography lessons integrated climate change? Are we actually wanting to see a whole 2-3 chapters in our syllabus saying we are zeroing down into what needs to be known by the student? Then actually earlier on mentioned how we don't want to be thinking about all those things when we get to Form 4 because we are interested in our careers now. We are concentrating on what we want to become. But are we being intentional with the primary schools? There's no geography there. I remember when we were in primary, but you know, things that don't relate to what we want to actually grasp and know about our environment. So the intentions, they need to be corrected. The systems you were talking about, Director, they need to be put in such a way that we impact the youngest of them all. Let them learn about the dangers of allowing a plastic to lie idly around. What does that mean for the environment? Because as this young person grows, even their business mind, when they acclimatize to what can I do to make extra cash, we are always preaching to these young people, the youth economy. It's all about hustling. We are saying, over and above what you do as a professional, what are you doing on the side? So the first thing that needs to come to this young person is, how can I save the environment? Because the environment saving has been inculcated into them. So it's the first go-to. Rather than thinking of going to make sweets, why is a young person not thinking about planting trees around my community? Last year we had a group, Hlume High School. We encourage all the companies that they form within the schools to actually have a community service responsibility aspect. What are you doing? What are you bringing? What are you giving back to your community? And they planted over 100 trees around their community, and with the help of other NGOs, because we also have to be aware that you can never do so much on your own. We need to form partnerships. We need to collaborate. We need to all move to the same direction so that we can see the results quickly and immediately. You understand? Because for as long as we keep on preaching about it, it won't happen. We need to have strategies. How are we then starting it? We are talking about going as low as the primary school. Our programs, they start at 5 years. So are we really there? And with the issue of inclusivity, we have at Junior Achievement come up with a module, a Braille module, because we understand that the students that are in the schools that are at disability schools, they cannot access information as easy as everyone else who is okay, who has all their faculties. So we've created a module to actually then help them understand entrepreneurship, expose them to the world that is not open to their eyes. They can't see what we are doing, but through the modules that we've created for them, they have actually come through and they've come up with brilliant ideas of how to even save the environment, of how to actually make a living. So inclusivity, Victor, we are getting there, but we need to pull our strengths together and actually, even government at that policy level needs to toe the line. Where are we going? I know there are other industry players, the environmental authority, they are also pushing so much of that information to say, we have grants, we have projects that young people can be engaged in, but we need to be intentional, all of us, and actually say, this is what we're doing. Do we have an action plan? Where do all the industry players fit? What is my role as junior achievement to advance climate change? So that we can all take position and actually time ourselves, have a timeline. By August, by September, what do we want to see changed within this space? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Spe. I think you are emphasizing the point on being intentional, and I think this is very, very key, so that we are driven by a clear vision of where we want to get to on being inclusive. Then you worked at some point with Curriculum Center. Can you talk to the curriculum issues as it pertains to the climate change and climate action? I think the question was aligning, how do we align to the 4th and 5th industrial revolution using curriculum?
Thanks a lot. So the curriculum work we did with the National Curriculum Center was under the Eswatini's National Adaptation Plan with the Ministry of Tourism and Environment. And it was one of the core components of the work. It wasn't the only one, but it was very important. And one thing I can tell you is our National Curriculum Center is a very well-oiled machine. They're doing amazing work already. So part of what we had to do was to evaluate the revised curriculum for grade 1 to grade 5, because it had been recently updated since 2018, to evaluate content of environmental or climate messaging, content, etc. And positively, there was a lot in there already, which was great. And the work that we did was grounded in that and helping them come up with steps to increase that integration for grade 6 and grade 7 for the final of primary school. Now, anyone who's involved in curriculum development knows it's a never-ending process. It's iterative, like climate adaptation, climate planning itself. Once they get to the end of grade 7, they start again from grade 1, and it's the same for secondary school. So that work was really important, and we worked with amazing people, and that work needs to continue beyond grade 6, grade 7. We've laid the foundation now for them to fully integrate that, but to continue building on it also into secondary. And this is where players like UNICEF and the UN Foundation, I would urge to step in and partner with NCC and MTA on advancing this work, because the ground is now fertile on that. The case of timing, capacity, funds to continue that work. But also for us to notice that curriculum is only one step in that process. It's one thing to have amazing curricula and books, which there are, and there will be more of. But what about the teachers themselves? Are they trained to bring that curriculum into the classroom? Do we have head teachers that are creating a conducive environment in schools? Do we have the facilities in the schools? Do we have desks? Do we have running water? Do we have students who are able to show up? Are they getting what is in these books? You know, there are many steps to that point. So let's not just focus on the curricula, let's also focus on the system as a whole that helps deliver that into the minds and hearts of the people in the classroom as well, so that it's a holistic process.
Thank you very much, Dane. Again, underscoring the fact that this is a systematic issue. Beyond curriculum, we still have a long way to go in terms of influencing the system positively towards climate action. I'd like to open up yet again to the floor. One more round of questions, and may I just have each of us maybe just ask one question so that we can allow a little bit more hands. But do we have the mic on the floor? Yeah, please. Please do you want to make one more comment?
Maybe as the mic goes to the floor, just a quick one. I think some of the things that I wanted to get back to on the curriculum, Dane has already talked to. But one thing that we all need to understand is once nasebenta indzaba yetfu sonke, kusho ukuthi sonke kufuna understandane. And that what's make it very complicated. Nyalo nje sengikhulume na director la nomlingani wami ukuthi there is some talking and discussing so that to understand and how we can move forward together. And it applies to all the sectors. Kulenza by curriculum nje asikayiqali nyalo. We started way back, but we found that we hadn't understood how to influence curriculum. Then we had to learn that, understand and replan and get back to it. So it's an of ukuthi nathi siyafunza kuna sifunze ukuthi junior achievements kusebenza kanjani stokhona kusebenza naye kahle naye afunze kusebenza nathi. Otherwise we are there kwethu vele is to make sure it's mainstream indaba ye-climate change everywhere, including everywhere in the education sector, and sitawukhona lokusebenzisana.
Thanks, Director. Let me open to the floor a question for each one of us raising hands. I am seeing about 6 or 7. Can I have the mic moving very fast there? Yeah, please. Can you please raise your voice, your name, and then ask your question or make a comment? Yes, please go ahead. Yes, what role can young people play in climate action in Eswatini? Let's have the mic moving in the same line so that we are done with this line. Can I have the mic on the lady over there? Mics. Okay, maybe as we sort the mic issue, can we have Zandi talk to the youth engagement on climate action? What role?
Thank you for the question. As mentioned in my introduction, there are many things that young people can do. So for example, you can start off with advocacy, spreading the word on what climate change is, what you can do, what solutions we can come up with in our communities. Innovation, you can use the education you have learned to come up with innovative solutions to solve the climate crisis we're facing within our environment. We can also do peer-to-peer learning, capacity building. One organization can teach another organization on what they can do within the climate change space through the various sector, whether it's agriculture, water, food, whatever the case may be. There can also be community initiatives where we can all come together within Peaks Peak, whatever community you are in, and come together with all of your skills to create those solutions that can solve the climate crisis we're facing.
Sorry, thank you very much. And I think we are not really doing well in terms of time. I can see there's a lot of questions that you wanted to ask, but our time is really limited, and would like to bring this discussion to a close. We are almost, we've almost run out of time, but maybe at this point, I'll just allow in 30 seconds the panelists here to say just your last word.
Yeah, 30 seconds. Education and awareness go hand in hand. So we're here talking about education and young people, curriculum, schools, homes, very important. But awareness on a public level for all of us, whatever your age, to help know what the problems are and what issues you can get involved with in your community, whether it's protecting a wetlands, doing a cleanup, addressing a big mining project, or finding better resources for your school. Be aware, be involved, share knowledge.
Yes, 10 seconds, Victor. We advocate for climate change to be made for everyone. We start from the lowest of our lowest, from our preschool, and we get the bus rank, we get everybody involved.
Thank you. Moving along, let's have Zandi, your last word, 10 seconds.
I'm not sure, okay, it's working. So I'd like to encourage young people to work together, share their work, especially use the power of social media. Don't hide what you guys are doing. Showcase it so that other people are aware with it. Also collaborate with our institutions such as the Eswatini Environmental Authority, UNDP, UNICEF. Let them also know what you guys are doing so that they can be aware of how they can further help you and how you can collaborate with them to amplify the work that you guys are doing in the communities.
Thank you. Director?
Yinzab. Yinzaba yethu sonke, but it starts by me and you making sure that we are well informed, so that as we spread the information, we are very sure we're spreading the right information. Misinformation can be a very, very serious problem as a sebenta in climate change. And all sectors, all areas, there is a way you can bring in climate change.
That brings us to the end of our discussion, and thanking everyone from the audience here. You've been very good, to the panelists, and handing over to our program directors. Thank you.
What a wonderful and very, very informative session there, Tabelo. And as far as things look, I think we are making amazing strides and we are making good enough progress. You know, by the time 2030 is around the corner, we will definitely have achieved quite a lot. And the issue of language and communication was raised, but the beautiful synergy of UN and Bushfire is that we incorporate the arts using the transformational power. What do you think?
And of course, you know, what I took away from this mostly is that young people should mobilize, you know, and continue to sustain the environment in many different ways, because, you know, with social media, and we should be using every single tool that we have into sustaining our environment. But with that said, Sia, unfortunately, we do have to close off the live broadcast. As we have already mentioned, this is the first of many. Next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and of course Thursday, we will be coming to the viewers live with more pertinent conversations and discussions, and the live dialogue continues.
Indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, let us continue to bring our fire. One more time. Do you have your fire? Can you say, bring your fire? No, it's still coals that are dying out. Bring your fire. Bring your fire. That's more like it.
All righty, wrapping up. That is it. Thank you so much to everyone who joined this specific discussion. And remember, Tuesday, we are bringing our fire yet again. Signing out, this Tabelo, and of course, Sia.